You're listening to No Plot, Only Lore, a podcast about games and the tables we play them at. Your DMs tonight and every night are Josh and Chris. You can find us on all podcast platforms or check us out at noplotonlylore.com. If you like what you hear today, please rate and review the show and share it with everyone you've ever met.
Welcome back
to... Oh, shit! What?
You know, I figured since this is part 2, I should just jump right into it because
okay,
yeah, this is again another Josh heavy episode. We cut things off in the middle of our sumo history, just as I was sort of giving a brief talk about the history of Yokozuna as a rank and moving into the modern era of sumo. So we've touched on the basics of what is sumo, the early pre-modern history, the ancient history of sumo, the weird Japanese Middle Ages, and now
kicking people.
Yeah, exactly, kicking people to death. Well, gods fight about a tent or something. Anyways,
can I just say that like Shinto stories are on the whole more wacky than I'm used to a lot of religious stories being.
You know, I think that's a pattern I've seen in like Eastern religions in general, is that their gods are much more human than other gods. If you talk about like Chinese culture, Hindu culture, Shinto, like their gods are not that far above us. They just have a different job.
Well, the Japanese have such an interesting aesthetic with and like relationship with the supernatural. Like, well, one of my favorite things about the Japanese Isles is just the wide diversity of monsters that they have, where it's just like shit that makes no sense anywhere else. That like it doesn't follow any of the standard like chimeric things of like I took a hawk and a lion and I smashed them together to make a cooler critter. No, it's just like here is a frog person with a head shaped like a bowl full of water, and if you want to deactivate them, bow politely.
Yeah. Yeah. Because,
that is
and not just because you're
so
being polite, because bowing will force them to bow to you, which spills the water out of their head and makes them dead. Like, what? No, the Japanese kami are so bizarre, and they're a good portion of the reason why I love the board game Rising Sun, because the kami are a huge part of it, and there's so many wacky ones. Yeah, I love it. But speaking of Shinto, sumo. So we ended right before the start of the Meiji era. Sumo has just been reestablished as it was banned for a little bit. Now it's back. The families have been fighting.
Why did it come back?
I think because the Shinto priests act really nicely. They basically said, hey, we need to run a charity event. We need to make some money.
Right.
Can we please entertain some people with this if we like put some boundaries in place?
Honestly, like if you came to me and were like, hey, we're planning to do a charity thing, would you like to watch some people slap the shit out of each other and then knock each other out of a ring? I'd be like, yes, please.
100%. Yeah. Most importantly, can I gamble on it? Because I think that's also played a big role in it. Is gambling makes a lot of money, and if you're a broke church that needs to spruce the place up, just open up the slot machines or whatever for a week. Like,
unless you're Las Vegas right now.
Yeah. Fair.
Apparently, they don't have enough Canadian tourists to keep Las Vegas open.
Oops. So, like I said, they put some rules into place with the reestablishment of sumo. There was some back and forth with a couple of catty little families over who gets to decide who's an actual champion. But as we enter the late 19th century, the sumo starts to go through another big cultural shift. So it had been semi-legitimized. The Yokozuna rank was something that was still highly politicized, but everything else was pretty formal. The way that you worked your way up the rankings, what an official ranking meant, the rules of the sport. But by the time we hit about 68, 70, sumo is viewed as sort of backwards and embarrassing. Japan has contacted the modern world. The era of Japanese isolation has ended. Matthew Perry, not the Friends actor, but the American admiral, has reached the islands and started exposing Japan to the modern world.
I didn't realize until after he died that I wanted Matthew Perry to play Matthew Perry.
It's so easy for him.
Right?
So popular society starts to kind of turn away from it towards more Americanized things, both in their dress and their military styles. So a lot of the samurai culture starts to disappear at that time, and with it, sumo.
Well, I'm not sure that samurai culture or sumo ever fully recovered from that. Right? Like, I remember even as late as like the 1990s, early 2000s, like the idea of sumo was kind of laughable.
Yep. Yeah.
Like, it didn't have a lot of respect in Western culture. It was something that you joked about.
Yeah.
It wasn't really something that like people took seriously in Canada, at least.
Yeah, and part of it was, I think, the isolated nature of Japan that kept the true sport from getting out there. Like, you saw representations in art, and you heard some, comic examples of it, but it was pretty insulated from Western influences for a very long time. Even now, it's difficult for Western audiences to get into the sport because it's so culturally tied to Japan. They're very protective of it. So Meiji Restoration starts
with long storylines too, right? Like, you've got things that have been going on for like some families for like dozens or like hundreds of years that need to be taken into account for like various events that are still happening today. So,
sure. Yeah. So
not a lot of jumping on points.
So it takes a dip for a while, but then in 1884, Emperor Meiji himself organizes a tournament and uses it as a sort of a focal point for national symbolism and this strong nationalist identity that sprung up in the time of their successes against Korea and China. So
I'm sure that's going to go great for
them. So yeah, if you didn't know, Japan actually ruled Korea for about 40-45 years. In that time, in 1925, the Japan Sumo Association is sort of reassembled as a formal governing body. And they start by expanding tournaments from 2 a year to 4, and then from 4 to 6 in 1958, where it's stayed the same. People talk about basically, in their mind, sort of the modern era starts with the 6 tournament era. And then slightly before that, in 1949, they went from having 10-day tournaments to 15. And
well, like 1958 feels like a modern number.
Yeah.
Like
it's
post Korean
War.
Sort of,
it's yeah.
Yeah.
Everything that kind of starts with Vietnam, So.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when our childhood innocence was stripped away. Now we're modern.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay.
So yeah, even though Yokozuna was written on the Banzuke as early as 1890, for the first time due to the 16th Yokozuna insisting that it be put on the Banzuke. It used to just be Ozeki. Everyone's Ozeki who's at champion level. He's like, no, I'm a Yokozuna. Like, this means something. It used to not mean anything. Now it does. And then in like slightly after that, like 1909, it becomes like officially recognized with the 19th and 20th Yokozunas saying like, yes, this is the highest rank you can achieve. And
you got to respect that hustle.
Yeah.
It's just like, Yeah, this is my title. It's also the thing you aspire to.
Yes. Yeah. It went from like, hey, this is just like kind of a political title with like ceremonial functions to like, no. This is, I'm the real deal. And then they formed the Yokozuna Deliberation Council in 1950 to basically like put rules, well, loose rules in place, but rules nonetheless for becoming promoted to. There's been exceptions, but you generally know you have to get to a certain rank and then win 2 tournaments back to back, and then you'll be promoted. They've been in charge of it since then. And then the first one they promoted officially was the 41st Yokozuna.
Sorry, so we went from like 18 to 41?
So the officially on the Banzuke was at 16, and then 60 years later you went to 41. Now, there was a lot less Yokozuna in the early days, like a lot less, because again, it was like a political title. There was only 2 tournaments a year. You kind of had to like buy your Yokozuna license. Once they formalized the process for becoming a Yokozuna, they added a lot more in those early days, but there was this burst of Yokozuna that happened in the early 1900s, just because now it was an official rank, so you could aspire to it and figure out how to get there. And then they kind of put the council in place to like rein that back a little bit. So since the council's been formed, there's only been another like 35 added. Yeah. So there's been not a ton of change since the 1960s. They've done a couple things like the roof that was over the dohyo. They removed the pillars that were holding it up. It used to be like physically attached to the dohyo, which eventually they were like, you know what, we could just hang that roof from the ceiling because we're indoors anyways, and then we don't have to have these pillars blocking the view of everyone. They still have 4 colored tassels hanging from the roof that sort of symbolize the pillars, but yeah, they're just like, okay, we get north, south, east, west, whatever. And now
the symbology is still there. Goddamn.
Yeah, it feels like a sort of a concession for like the spiritual origins of the sport, while understanding like the need for accessibility to like mainstream audiences. Because they did start televising these matches as early as the 50s and 60s. So having a big pole in the way of your camera doesn't really help anything. They've also, I mean,
you would assume that they'd position the cameras in such a way that wouldn't be a problem, but also like
the guys move, so
limits the amount of space you can use for the cameras, I guess.
It also did help the ringside judges. So there, in addition to the referee in the middle, there's 5 guys on the outside who are senior ranking members of the JSA, so coaches and former Yokozunas and stuff, who observe the match, and if the judge they think makes the call wrong, or there's ambiguity about the outcome of a match, they can put their hand up, stand up, and they will get together and talk about what happened, and they have the ultimate deciding authority. So
so when do we get that in hockey?
Right? I mean, they added video recall to 2 more special judges, but it came after hockey already had video recall. So I feel like we could just get 5 more judges in hockey, then we'll have the best of both worlds. But so these guys, they can overturn a call if they think it was wrong.
Okay.
They can also just say, hey, it was too close to call, do it again. It's called a torna oshi.
What's the consequence of the call being made incorrectly? Does the match just go to the other wrestler, or like what happens there?
So they can just say, hey, you got it wrong. This guy actually won, and that's it. That guy wins. End of story. Funny thing to note, the referees actually carry tanto knives, in theory, for committing suicide if they got something so egregiously wrong that they felt the need to reclaim their honor by killing themselves.
Has this ever been televised?
No. I haven't looked. I can't think of any examples of a judge actually killing themselves over a result anytime in like after ancient sumo. After they stopped killing each other in the ring, I don't think the judges cared about killing themselves if they got the call wrong.
I would not be so sure about that.
Fair.
Because, like, Tokugawa era, like, that was taken very seriously.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you fucked up that bad,
yeah,
at the thing that you were, like, divinely decided to do, or
yeah,
whatever, yeah, you would be expected to take your own life.
Yeah.
And if they were taking sumo that seriously, then yeah, I would not be surprised at all.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't
Like,
bring the knife
show
out for no reason, so who knows? I just don't know when the last time that happened was. Certainly not in my lifetime.
3 weeks ago.
There was a scandal with one of the head judges who wound up quitting like a year ago, and he didn't kill himself. So,
whatever happened to good traditional Japanese values?
Anyways, they've done some rules tweaking over the years, like the initial charge, the tachiai, has become a lot more regulated. It used to just be like a bout started with mutual consent. Basically, as soon as both guys were like, I'm ready, they just went. And if you look back at old fights from like the 50s, 60s, it was like they just kind of like stood behind the line, kind of like set up and just went. And it was very fast. Now the rule is both guys have to have both knuckles down on the clay before they can start.
Right. They also start very fast though.
Yes. Like after they've done all their pre-fight rituals, which takes forever if you go in person. Once the judge says, or once the ref says, okay, you can go for real now. Like what you'll see is like, if we think of like the four hands as like 4 points of contact, they'll sit there with like 3 points of contact while one guy like wiggles his fingers for a minute, and then he'll just kind of like swing his hand and you go. Like it's right. Very quick. The idea being you're set and like a coiled spring. You're just like
But the other side of that, and this is the thing that I find both hilarious and frustrating about sumo, is that you will have 3 points of contact on the ground, and the other guy will make like he's about to do it, and then just get up and casually walk away.
Yeah. They'll kind of do the false start, and he's like, all right, hold on, like something doesn't feel right, because in the idea is that they like synchronize their breathing, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like no one is actually doing that, but it's so vague, and it's part of what I actually like about the sport is that there's these weird emotional vagaries to it. Like if you look at amateur sumo, which I don't know if it's necessary, but they have it much more structured where like you both put your fists down and then the ref says go and then you can go. Right? Okay. It's like it's too strict and clean for me. I need some of that messiness, some of that wonkiness. There's some guys who they don't even fully touch the ground with that other hand. They just kind of like flick their fingers at it. But it's like, we get the idea. Like, you're ready to go, let's go. Yeah. And I like that it's up to the athletes to decide when they're going to go, not a ref. Like this isn't a sprint. You're not sitting there waiting for the starting gun. It's just like once the two of us have locked eyes and sort of like gotten in that like, all right, we're going to go kind of headspace, like let us do our thing, right?
There's also like I feel like there's a strategic portion of it where like you have somebody who is there, and like you said, they're a coiled spring. Yeah. Right? Like they are tense, they are ready, they're anticipating, and then you get up and you walk away, and now they have to like loosen that up. Yeah. And like get back into it. And so like,
and you see that
all
sometimes.
Of those mind games.
You see the mind games of like, this guy's ready to go, I'm not, something's off. Sorry, let's reset. Or one guy's dallying around and eventually the judge is just like, no, reset. You guys gotta figure this out. And then if you can actually get like penalized for not starting correctly, if the judge doesn't think you guys went correctly, he'll just stop and say, no, redo that. So
I kind of dig that the entire like starting gun for this sport is vibes.
Yeah.
And are the vibes right?
Then things in the sport, which is part of what I love about it. I love a messy, ambiguous sport. Like if I wanted to see a sport that had all of its rules clearly defined, I would just watch chess. So This is
baseball. Going back to last week's discussion.
Yeah. This is high speed chess, but that's roughly the timeline of sumo. I want to say leading up to, I hesitate to call it like the current, like the modern era, because I think modern kind of covers everything, but there's been some noticeable things that have happened to sumo since the 80s, essentially, as the sport waxes and wanes in popularity in Japan. I mean, currently it's still fairly popular, but it is also seen as very traditional. It's something that like your dad watches or your grandpa watches, not necessarily the younger generation.
Interestingly, though, like, again, doing some reading for prepping for these episodes, one of the things that I was seeing is it is experiencing a bit of a boom internationally.
Yes. I was going to say that's been one of the saving graces of professional sumo, has been the introduction of international athletes and international audiences in a lot of ways. So
despite NHK's best efforts to make sure that
they
foreigners are
like
not
it.
watching sumo.
They don't like it because this is their national pastime. But so let's start in the 80s.
Okay.
Foreign wrestlers aren't exactly new in sumo. There's records of them as early as the 1920s, 1930s. In fact, a guy from California was brought back as like a Japanese sympathizer from like the mid 30s. Who had gone over to do professional sumo. But you saw it pick up a lot more in the modern era as they started moving into the 60s. The first foreign wrestler to hit the top division came in the 1970s, a guy named Takamiyama, who was a Hawaiian, which was a horrific portent to the future for Japanese Sumo Association. In the late 80s, a bunch of Hawaiians showed up. Japan...
Right.
Just to touch on this lightly, Japan has an interesting cultural relationship with Pacific Islanders. They've always viewed them as like genetic cousins, and got along very well, especially in the Hawaiian Islands. And sumo has had history in weird places that Japanese people have gone. So sumo showed up in a lot of clubs in Hawaii and a lot of clubs in Brazil for some reason. And there's like...
Is Brazil where all of the like Axis people went to the same way that all of the Nazis went to Argentina?
I don't know the history of it, but given that Brazil is also took jiu-jitsu and then made it their own, it seems like for some reason Japan and Brazil have this weird cultural mingling. I think it's mostly tied to the Portuguese explorers who were some of the first to make contact with Japan and then went to Brazil. Don't quote me on that. I'm not a historian. This is my...
I was actually just thinking like how great Maori sumo wrestlers could be.
They're really good.
They're some big dudes.
So the first foreign-born Ozeki was a Hawaiian man named Kanishiki. Right. He is huge, or was huge. He's still a big guy. He's not like 600 pounds. If you look up a picture, a stereotypical picture of sumo wrestling, it's actually a photo of Kanishiki fighting in the Royal Albert Hall in London, wrestling against a guy who you swear is a quarter of his size. He is terrifying looking. The lighting is perfect to just see this mound of terrifying flesh. And that's also the time where the idea of the fat sumo wrestler really starts pushing. These guys were big before, but they were big and muscular, not just fat. Sometimes they're
still muscular, to be fair, right? Like they
still have an incredible amount of strength, but for the most part, you see classical depictions of sumo wrestlers as guys who are like jacked to the gills with like a beer belly, which is closer to what you think of as like a power lifter's body, right? Kanishiki was 600 pounds, and that was both his biggest strength and what kept him from ever becoming Yokozuna. he fought against a guy at the time, a Japanese yokozuna named the Wolf. I'm spacing on his name. I had it in my head literally a second ago. I'll come back to it. But that guy was, I mean, like a more muscular Bruce Lee. He was strong. Chiyonofuji, that's his name. Chiyonofuji was a technical wrestler who still went for, he wasn't trying to like, he wasn't doing the Oshizumo, the pushing, thrusting, just kind of push you out of the ring. He was a Yotsuzumo guy who would get you on the belt and use throws and judo techniques and grappling to trip you up. He had a lot of struggles early in his career because his strength was enough to win fights, but the wear and tear on his body from trying to leverage people who were so much bigger than him caused him to like dislocate his shoulder. So he had to put on more size. And he did, and he was a national hero. He was one of their greatest yokozuna of all time. He is the image of what a powerful Japanese yokozuna should be. Even the legendary Taiho, who was earlier in the century, was not a hugely fat guy. He was just a big guy. Taiho until Hakuho was the winningest yokozuna ever. So the idea of just like mass and bulk being your weapon started coming around more with the Samoans and the Hawaiians because they were just huge dudes. Akebono was like 6'8", you know.
That's huge.
Yeah. Damn. Massive guy. So Akebono, who is from Hawaii, real name Chadwick, which I will never get over. Akebono becomes the first foreign-born yokozuna, and a incredibly dominant one. He fought Chiyonofuji and the famous Takanohana and Wakanohana over the course of the 90s, and paved the way for the next Hawaiian yokozuna, Musashi Maru. And those guys just sort of redefined what sumo was going to be for quite a while. Akebono, like I mentioned, eventually retired and came back and did some WWE wrestling, things like that. He's since passed away, unfortunately. Musashi Maru and Kunishiki both still live in Japan, run a stable and coach.
Just so that I'm absolutely clear, because I don't actually know, was Akebono the person who called themselves Yokozuna?
No.
Yokozuna?
No, unrelated.
No? Okay.
No. Yokozuna was a guy playing a character in the 90s. Akebono was an actual wrestler. They brought him in as like, hey, this is like the real Yokozuna. And then there's been...
That's funny.
Since then, there's been another guy named Rikishi, which is just a mispronunciation of Rikishi, which is like what you would call a sumo wrestler. So that was a huge...
Is that guy also actually a sumo wrestler? Or
no, just a Hawaiian. He's just a big Hawaiian.
Great.
And they also, like, the WWE has this really bad habit of, like, playing into, like, the grossest stereotypes of some of that stuff. Like, oh, this guy's ass is fully out, so his finisher is just going to be, like, put his ass in your face. Stuff like that. So
this guy's vaguely Arab themed. We could give him bomb things.
Yeah, exactly.
That's literally my last memory of like 2000s era, like WWF is when they started doing they started leaning real hard into the war on terror, and I was like, I'm good.
So the Hawaiians do too good. They do so good that the JSA for a little while says no more foreigners, please. And they unofficially ban the Heias from recruiting foreigners.
That's so goddamn Japanese.
It's extremely Japanese.
Well, one of the things that I love and find frustrating about Japan is their relationship with foreigners kind of in general.
Yeah.
And the idea of just saying that like foreigners can't participate in sport in North America would be like people clutching their pearls. They would be so affronted by this decision. Where in Japan, it's just like, of course foreigners aren't allowed to participate. The fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Why would we let foreigners participate?
It's like if Canadians banned foreigners from playing hockey. Like that's literally what it is over there.
I don't hate that.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, if we were just like, no, actually, the NHL will never expand outside of Canada. Go away.
Yeah, all of the NHL teams south of the border can get fucked.
So they put in this like soft ban, right? They'd say, oh, they're not actually banned, but they're also like, don't you dare recruit any foreigners. And then late 90s, early 2000s, they say, okay, we can have some foreigners, but we can only have 44 in the whole organization, and everybody only gets 2.
Okay.
And then like a year later, they were like, okay, everybody only gets 1, but there can be as many in the organization as we want, right? So everybody can get 1, just 1.
And how many stables are there?
I have no idea. There's a lot.
Okay.
And that's the thing, is like I don't actually know how many stables there are, because the ones I interact with are just the ones that are like successful. There's a lot of small stables out there with like a half a dozen guys, and none of them make a salary, but they get their money from the JSA, so like the bills pay themselves, and then they have the finances of sumo are insanely complicated, because it's a combination of like revenue that the JSA generates, plus what the individual stable can drum up from supporters and sponsors, plus what the wrestler themselves can negotiate for sponsorships. Like it's insane. But they're like, okay, we can have a bunch of foreigners, but only 1 for everybody. And right about that same time, the Mongolians show up. Now,
oh no.
This is a big oh no, because this is an ongoing problem. So
you mean racism against Mongolians in Japan?
Well, there's that. I mean, like, no. What I'm talking about is the Mongolian domination of the sport.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, for those of you who don't know, Mongolia has a national sport called bok, which is very similar to old school sumo. It is 2 guys in not a lot of clothing trying to throw each other onto the ground.
Kicking each other to death.
Bok is still practiced there the same way it always has been. It's outdoors a lot of the time, and the only way to win is throwing a guy to the ground. And it turns out that skill set translates really, really well to a sport that's about wearing not a lot of clothes and throwing a guy to the ground.
Right.
So, statistics
with
wise,
more rules.
Yeah, slightly.
Slightly.
They just gave them more ways to win. You're like, oh, you don't have to hit this guy with the earth. I could just shove him really hard. Cool. So, in a sport where you're only allowed to have 1 foreigner at your stable, most of those foreigners are Mongolians. Mongolians make up roughly 7% of the active sumo wrestlers, and 33% of the active salaried wrestlers.
I'm going to do some clicky clackies because I want to know what the percentage of Mongolians living in Japan is.
I think all of them are in sumo. I don't know what's actually going on there, but these guys are being recruited directly from Mongolia.
Right. So as of mid-2025, approximately 21,186 Mongolian citizens reside in Japan.
Yeah. So
that's for
nothing.
a country that has like 10 million people in a city.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not a lot of people.
There's not a lot of Mongolians, and it turns out most of them are in sumo. So the Mongolians show up, and Asashoryu becomes the 68th Yokozuna. Asashoryu is a force of nature. He is violent in a way that they haven't seen before in his sumo. He's also arrogant. He has a lot of problems with the idea of a Yokozuna's presentation and demeanor and the way he's supposed to act in public. But he is the start of a tidal wave. Since they have had Asashoryu as the 68th Yokozuna, the 69th Yokozuna, a Mongolian, Hakuho, who I will expand more upon in a second, but he is the goat.
Okay.
The absolute goat.
Right.
The 70th Yokozuna, Harumafuji, another Mongolian. Okay. The 71st, Kakuryu, another Mongolian. And then Kiseno Sato, the 72nd Yokozuna, A Japanese man? How did he get there? Oh, kind of by accident. He was really good, got promoted, and then never won a tournament again and had to retire in disgrace. Why? Because it took him so much work to beat Hakuho to get there that he blew his pec off and never was able to get surgery and fix it.
Damn.
The 73rd Yokozuna, Terunofuji, another Mongolian. The 74th Yokozuna, Hoshoryu, the nephew of Asashoryu, another Mongolian. And now they do have a 75th Yokozuna who, thank God, is Japanese. But it's been a problem. The Mongolians are really, really good. Hakuho's father was essentially a Yokozuna in Mongolia, in Bok. These guys just perform outlandishly well. When I say outlandishly well, and when I say Hakuho is the GOAT, Hakuho was...
They actually come from the Outlands,
yeah.
And they're doing very well.
Hakuho was in the sport for about 20 years. He won more tournaments than the next guy by almost doubling him. He won 45 tournaments in his career. He won more tournaments than anyone else by a large margin. He won every tournament in a 12-month span, twice, I think. He also has more undefeated tournaments than everyone else. And his final tournament was him beating the soon-to-be Yokozuna with a 15-0 record.
God damn.
This guy is dominant like they've never seen before. And also a huge ambassador for the sport. He established events like the Hakuho Cup. He reaches out to other foreigners in other foreign countries and promotes the sport as much as he can. I could do an
obviously Japan loves him and they've been helping him and pushing him in front of people as like an ambassador, and they love everything he's doing.
As of last year, Hakuho is no longer in the JSA.
Okay.
It would take at least a full episode to go over not just the history of Hakuho as a wrestler, but what the hell has happened with him and the Sumo Association since then.
In that case, I have some good news. Because we have an entire new series coming out.
Yep.
That is specifically about sumo.
It's true. I'm not going to start with Hakuho, but I am going to do an episode about what is happening with generally like racism in sumo. Hakuho is their GOAT, and they hate him for it. They don't want people knowing he was that good.
I joke about it, but I also recognize that like racism in Japan is a complicated thing and has a lot of facets that touch on traditionalism and
Japanese exceptionalism,
and there's like this whole mess that's involved in like the culture. So yeah, it does not surprise me even a little bit to know that they are kind of freaking out about the Mongolian dominance in this Japanese sport. And we've talked about it a little bit with like Hakuho running off to Mongolia and starting his own league and all of that. But again, stuff we can get into in your own podcast, which I will not be there for. Talking all about sumo from a Canadian perspective.
Yes, Maple Sumo starts up in a week, 2 weeks?
Like less as of this publication. I think it will be yesterday.
I've done no homework. It's going to be I haven't even touched on the match fixing scandal of the early 2000s. Turns out organized crime, a known problem in Japan, and was super involved in throwing matches for years to the point where they canceled a tournament and fired like 15 people after the guys behind Freakonomics essentially exposed the fact that like, math says some of these guys are throwing matches.
Okay, so like I expected a lot of possible things to come out of your mouth. Like I was thinking like Yakuza and like talking about all of the organized crime. Fucking Freakonomics.
Yep. Guys use econometrics to be like, he shouldn't have won that match. And it turns out they were right.
All right. So if you want to know what happened with all of that, and you're interested in following what's new and what's old and what is happening today in Sumo, absolutely check out Maple Sumo. Josh will tell you about that. Hey, thanks for making it all the way through this episode of No Plot Only Lore. If you're looking for more, you can always find us at noplotonlylore.com and on all the very best podcast platforms. If you like what you heard today, please share, rate, and review the show to feed my never-ending need for attention and validation.